The sun, a molten disk of late afternoon gold, bled across the ancient, rolling hills of Rutland. It was a precise moment, not just of natural beauty, but of cultural inflection. Inside the meticulously restored Honeystone Manor House, the scent of polished oak and something vaguely herbaceous, perhaps a bespoke diffuser blend, mingled with the faint, almost imperceptible hum of a well-regulated climate control system. Here, on what was once simply a stretch of English countryside, Nobu Hotels, a brand synonymous with the neon pulse of Tokyo and the cool detachment of Malibu, was planting its flag. This was not a rustic inn, nor a quaint bed and breakfast. This was Nobu's first UK countryside retreat, as reported by multiple sources, a strategic pivot for a global hospitality giant. Imagine the crisp white linen, the minimalist aesthetic softened by carefully chosen local textures, the omakase menu reimagined with foraged ingredients. Robert De Niro's company, a name intrinsically linked to urban grit and sophisticated cool, was not just venturing into the pastoral, but actively redefining it. Their luxury countryside retreat 1 hour from N, referring to London, one assumes, was not merely an expansion, but a statement. The rural, once the antithesis of the urban sophisticated, was now its most coveted accessory. This transformation, a commodification of tranquility, was palpable in the hush of the long drawing room, where a lone figure, perhaps a venture capitalist or a tech titan, gazed out at a landscape that was simultaneously authentic and utterly curated. The rustle of the leaves outside felt less like nature's random breath and more like a carefully orchestrated soundscape, an auditory complement to the visual theater of the fading light. This was the opening act, not just for a hotel, but for an entirely new cultural narrative of escape, where nature became a meticulously designed amenity rather than an inherent state. The moment was ripe with an almost unsettling perfection, a testament to the seamless integration of global luxury into a landscape that once resisted such overt interventions. It was a quiet invasion, executed with impeccable taste and an undeniable financial imperative. The contemporary landscape of the countryside retreat is a battleground of competing visions, a palimpsest where ancient agricultural rhythms meet the sleek, often disruptive, ambitions of global capital. The prevailing narrative, particularly for a premium international audience, is largely dictated by the luxury sector, spearheaded by figures and brands who have meticulously crafted an image of rural idol as a purchasable commodity. This is not merely a trend. It is a re-engineering of rural identity, driven by a confluence of post-pandemic yearning for escape and sophisticated market analysis. At the forefront of this transformation are hospitality behemoths and visionary developers who recognize the lucrative potential in curating rustic authenticity. Nobu Hotels, for instance, a brand synonymous with urban chic and celebrity endorsement, is making its unprecedented foray into the British countryside, with its first UK countryside retreat slated for Rutland. This strategic pivot, as reported in late 2023, signifies a critical moment, pushing the boundaries of what constitutes a Nobu experience. It is no longer confined to the metropolitan elite, but extends to a carefully selected slice of the pastoral, complete with the brand's signature minimalist luxury and culinary prestige. Robert De Niro's involvement lends an undeniable cachet, transforming a tranquil, often overlooked region into a destination for the global jet set, merely an hour from major northern hubs. This leadership, however, is not without its complexities. The visionaries behind these ventures, the executive teams at Nobu, the developers of expansive estates, operate under the premise of elevating the rural experience. They argue for economic injection, job creation, and the rejuvenation of local economies. Yet, their very success hinges on a specific interpretation of countryside, one that prioritizes curated tranquility and high-end amenities over the lived realities of agricultural production, local community dynamics, or the delicate ecological balance. Consider the role of figures like Justin Salisbury, co-founder of Artist Residence Hotels, whose properties, while boutique and charming, also contribute to this redefinition. Their success lies in presenting a stylized, often romanticized version of rural life, making it palatable and desirable for an urban escapee. This isn't inherently negative, but it does highlight a powerful, often top-down, influence on how the countryside is perceived and consumed. The leading voices in this space are not necessarily the farmers, the conservationists, or the long-term residents, but rather the architects of experience, the marketers of escape, and the purveyors of luxury who understand the contemporary desire for a return to nature, albeit a highly sanitized and serviced version of it. This dynamic creates a cultural tension where the authentic, often rugged, character of the countryside risks being overshadowed by a commercially viable, aesthetically pleasing, but ultimately constructed ideal. Beyond the marketing gloss of escape and tranquility, the contemporary countryside retreat, particularly in its luxury manifestation, is a testament to an intricate and often intensely self-conscious craft. This is not the rustic, unadorned simplicity one might associate with traditional rural living, but rather a meticulously engineered experience, a sophisticated alchemy of materials, design principles, and psychological conditioning. Consider the Nobu Hotel's venture into Rutland, their first UK countryside retreat. 3. This isn't merely a matter of finding a picturesque location. It involves a deep dive into adapting a globally recognized aesthetic, one synonymous with sleek urbanity and Japanese minimalism, to an entirely different vernacular. The technique here is one of carefully calibrated juxtaposition and subtle integration. The materials themselves become part of the narrative. While local stone and timber might be employed to ground the structure in its surroundings, their application is often elevated to an art form, polished, and curated to a degree rarely seen in authentic rural architecture. We see the deployment of specific, high-end, often imported finishes, perhaps bespoke Japanese ceramics in the bathrooms, or minimalist furniture crafted from rare woods, that speak to a globalized luxury standard rather than purely local sourcing. This is a deliberate choice, intended to signal exclusivity and a departure from the quotidian. The process involves architects and interior designers, often international, who are tasked with translating a brand's core identity into a rural idiom without diluting its premium appeal. The challenge lies in creating an environment that feels both connected to nature and simultaneously insulated from its perceived inconveniences. Take, for example, the glamping phenomenon, which offers a luxurious countryside retreat. 5. Here, the craft is in creating an illusion of ruggedness while providing every conceivable comfort. High-performance fabrics, often engineered for outdoor resilience, but with a luxurious hand feel, are used for tent structures. Integrated heating and cooling systems, discreetly hidden, ensure climate control. The process involves a meticulous selection of amenities, memory foam mattresses, high thread count linens, and fully plumbed ensuite bathrooms, all designed to replicate the comforts of a five-star hotel within a canvas structure. This is not camping. It is a meticulously crafted simulation of it, where every element, from the ambient lighting to the curated scent profiles, is designed to evoke a specific emotional response, relaxation without deprivation. The underlying technique is one of curated authenticity, where the wild is tamed and presented as a consumable, perfectly packaged experience. The very idea of the countryside retreat, in its current iteration, is less about spontaneous immersion and more about a carefully orchestrated encounter, a testament to the power of design and materials to shape perception. The contemporary landscape of the countryside retreat, far from being a blank canvas, is indelibly marked by the visions and ventures of specific individuals and the architectural legacies of their houses. This is not merely about ownership, but about the imprinting of a particular aesthetic and philosophical approach onto the rural fabric. Consider the audacious move by Robert De Niro's company, Nobu Hotels, into the UK's countryside, with their inaugural rural venture 1 hour from London. This isn't just a hotel opening, it is a cultural statement, a deliberate transplant of urban sophistication and brand prestige into a setting historically associated with rustic simplicity. Nobu's choice to establish its first UK countryside retreat in Rutland signals a calculated expansion beyond its metropolitan comfort zone, a direct appeal to an affluent clientele seeking a curated escape that retains the hallmarks of global luxury. 1-3. The architecture and interior design of such establishments, while often attempting to blend with local vernacular, inevitably introduce a sleek, internationalist sensibility, challenging traditional notions of rural aesthetics. Beyond the corporate giants, the individual touch remains paramount. The visionaries behind properties like Time in the Cotswolds, a collection of restored farm buildings transformed into a luxurious yet understated hotel and spa, exemplify a different kind of mastery. Here, the emphasis is less on overt branding and more on a deep reverence for the existing structure and landscape, albeit filtered through a contemporary lens of refined comfort. Similarly, the work of designers and architects who specialize in creating these high-end rural properties becomes crucial. Take the influence of figures like Ilsa Crawford, whose human-centric design philosophy often translates into spaces that feel both authentic and deeply luxurious, a crucial balance for the discerning retreat seeker. These masters are not simply renovating old houses. They are rescripting the narrative of rural living, transforming historical structures into contemporary havens that speak to modern desires for tranquility, beauty, and discreet service. The makers, whether they are celebrity hoteliers or independent designers, are shaping not just physical spaces, but also the very cultural perception of what a countryside retreat can and should be, influencing everything from local employment patterns to the broader socioeconomic dynamics of the surrounding communities. The interplay of innovation and tradition forms the very bedrock of the contemporary countryside retreat, a dynamic tension that defines its appeal and its challenges. This is not merely a question of old versus new, but rather a sophisticated dance between preserving an idealized past and embracing the exigencies of modern luxury and sustainability. Consider the example of Coworth Park, a Dorchester collection property in Berkshire, England. While its Georgian manor house and polo fields evoke a quintessential English country estate, its Michelin-starred restaurant, woven by Adam Smith, and its subterranean eco-spa, complete with a living roof and natural chemical-free pool, represent a profound commitment to contemporary innovation. This isn't a rejection of tradition, but an intelligent augmentation, where the serene grandeur of the estate is complemented by cutting-edge culinary techniques and environmentally conscious design, offering a holistic experience that appeals to a discerning global clientele.